I was wondering why we didn't have a quorum, but we had temporarily had a 100 attendee limit on our meeting. So folks are going to trickle in here. We'll give everyone another moment or two to try to rejoin. So thank you for your patience. Hi, everyone. We're just going to give one more minute. We had a slight issue with the Zoom account, but now it's been resolved. So folks are still trickling in. I'm going to give one more minute before we start the meeting or call the meeting to order. Okay, everyone, it's 7:35. And I will call the March meeting of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee to order. My name is Brian Graham, and I'm the chair of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee. And I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you for joining us, and apologize to folks who had issues joining temporarily, but glad to see that we have that resolved and we have more and more folks joining us. Um, I'm Once again, I'm very happy to see you all, and thanks for joining. I believe this will be our last fully virtual meeting for a while, assuming that we don't have something dramatically changed in the future, but I guess we will see how things go. Just a couple of reminders, and I'll get back. We do have a chunk of kind of new business, so I will remind folks about this, but just a couple of reminders. If you'd like to be recognized to speak or to make a motion, you need to use the raise your hand button. Please don't use the chat or to try to do business. There's a lot of chat messages, and there are things that we can miss in the chat window. So to make sure that you are recognized, please raise your hand. Except for there's an exception to that, and I'll remind everyone when we get closer to this. But when we have a new virtual, or if we have debate on a resolution or an issue or whatever, I'm going to request that folks use the reactions, the check mark, the green check mark, or the red X reactions to indicate whether they would like to speak for or against the motion. That way that we can balance the discussion on the topic in accordance with the rules that FCDC has, the standing rules that FCDC has for resolutions. So you can see, hopefully you can see on your screen kind of how that works. It's kind of basically in the same place where you can raise your hand. So hopefully you all can find that. If you have issues with that, just raise your hand. But that's something like I'd like to try today to see if we can kind of be more efficient in our balancing of debate. But now we, and then of course we have Zoom polls when we do have contested votes. You may need to exit full screen, or if you're on a phone or a tablet, you might have to swipe on your screen to get to the actual poll to vote. And after you have submitted your choice, the window will disappear, and eventually, after we give some time for folks to vote, then the results will be shared with everyone. So now we've done electronic meeting instructions. We'll come back to that again later, right before we get into the new business. But at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for the agenda and minutes, and request if there are any changes to the agenda or minutes. I'd like to recognize Jerry Poltz.
Thank you. I'm okay on the agenda, but you said minutes.
Yes, sir.
And I had 2 items on the minutes. One is I wanted to correct the spelling of Alice's last name. It's the same as mine, Foltz. She seconded one of the early motions.
Okay.
Any other request?
Without objection?
Any other request is to know who took the wonderful minutes. They should be thanked, and be nice if their name was on it. Maybe it was a number of people that put them together. I don't know.
Okay. That is our recording secretary. And those changes can be made without objection. Thank you, Jerry. Are there any other changes to the agenda or the minutes? Seeing no additional changes, the agenda and minutes are approved, and we can move on to the approval of new minutes. And thank you to Deborah, our recording secretary, for the minutes. Thank you very much. Now we are into approval of new members, and here is the list of voting members and associate members that are up for membership approval today. Is there any discussion? Or I guess with I know the screen says is there a motion in a second. These are members that are approved by are suggested and recommended by their district, so they are before us on the committee. Mr. Press, I will recognize you.
Thank you. So I guess do we need a motion at this point?
I think it's just on the floor, and if there's no discussion, then we'll have a vote.
Then I do have questions. I would like to hear, just in light of the situation with the particularly the anti-school board people, I'd like to hear, just like we did before, from each of the district chairs, that to confirm that they fully vetted these people to make sure that we are not admitting any of the anti-school board people that pretend to be Democrats. It's very important that we do that every meeting.
Okay. Would any of the district chairs like to speak on that topic or to answer that question? Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks, Brian. And Dan, appreciate the question. I can confirm that our membership committee has vetted all 4 of the individuals from Braddock. They are excellent folks, and we look forward to having them. Okay,
Rachel is next for Mason, and I know I know Davita. I know she's a good Democrat. But go ahead, Mason. Go ahead, Rachel, for Mason. Right there, Rachel. I think you're still on mute, Rachel.
Dewita, as you said, everybody knows Dewita, and she's fine. And I've spoken with Ananda Mason several times, and she's good to go too.
Okay, thank you. Looks like Julie Waters from Drainsville is next.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. All Drainsville's members are well-known and fully vetted.
Okay, Andrew Scalise. I think I know the answer for Andrew as well.
Yeah, we have a process to vet members. I'll never say anything's perfect, but we have a process to vet members, and that was followed.
Okay, so we haven't heard from Sully. I don't see Bob Berry present or Hunter Mill. Is Paul here? Paul, do you want to speak?
Yeah, everybody's vetted.
Okay. I know in my recollection, I personally know as prior Sully chair, the folks that have applied for Sully as well, or from other capacities. So I don't have concerns there. So I think that covers us. If there's no more discussion, Julie, did you have something else, or is your hand raised from before? Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing no additional discussion, the question is called, and we will now vote on whether or not we admit these members to FCDC, or I guess affirm their election of these members to their respective district committees and to FCDC. Do I need to launch the poll, Jack, or? Okay. Okay, last call for votes. And just as a reminder, you may have to exit out of full screen or swipe on a tablet or phone to see the poll. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. And unanimously, we have new voting and associate members. Thank you. There we go. Okay, the next order of business is introduction to special guests. And actually, I don't believe that we have any special guests. So I had requested a for a particular person to join us, but I don't see that they have joined us. So I think we can move on. Let me find out which the next agenda item is. Treasurer's report. Okay, Nadia, go ahead. Nadia, if you're speaking,
I thought I had
on.
unmuted myself,
Okay.
but I'm sorry. I guess
Okay.
I have to do it again.
Start again.
Okay, so this is the summary of where FCDC stands at the moment. We are very close to the end of our fiscal year, which ends on March 31st. So this is pretty close to where we are going to end the year. We will end with somewhere around 120,000, which may be a little bit more than we put in the budget to end with. We have a fundraiser coming up, but we also, it's not clear how much money we're going to make on it because we guaranteed them a very large amount of people and we don't know what it'll be. So I'm just going to assume we'll net zero on it for now. Hopefully it'll be better than that. So as you can see, our fundraising has done pretty well. We almost made our budget, and same with operations income. We did better than we expected on voter contact and support income. And then on expenses, we kind of spent everything we budgeted to reach out to voters and a little less than we budgeted on our operations expense. So I think we were pretty close on our budget. We have a few off budget items at the bottom that the one thing that we're going to lose money on is our buyout on the old copier. They paid us off, but they didn't pay us enough. And so we're going to lose that $33,000 from that. But other than that, I think we're doing pretty well. And if you want to look at the next page, you can see where the district committees stand at the moment, and any district committee chair or treasurer can ask me for a copy of their ledgers, but this shows you where each of them is at the moment, not counting anything that came in by credit card this month.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. If you do have questions, of course, she's always happy to answer them for you. But thank you for your work. And I guess I don't have my camera on anymore. Really appreciate that. I want to go back. Actually, I see Howard Springsteen has his hand raised. Howard, did you want to say something? You're on mute. You're going to have to unmute yourself.
No, I'm having computer problems. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. Okay. I do actually want to go back though, because I do want to recognize a special guest, and we're all special. Thank you for being our guests. But I would like to give an opportunity for Jennifer Carroll Foy, who I believe is here. Yes. A few minutes to say hello. If she's available and ready. We might have to come back. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on then to the chair's report, which is the next agenda item. The biggest thing that we have to talk about is the budget. The budget is kind of driven by our priorities and our goals, our aims for the next year. And of course, we have an important year this year and next year. I kind of hoped that we would know if we would have delegate elections this year, but we don't know that yet. But I anticipate that we will have an idea about whether that will happen soon, as that still plays out in the courts. So that will make this year even more important for FCDC if that does happen. But there are plenty of other things that are important that are going on that we need to focus on over the next year, and hopefully that's reflected in our budget. So I'm going to get into our presentation of the budget. The updated proposed budget. Okay, before I get into it, Jennifer Carroll Foy is available. So let's do that. Allow her to speak before we get into a budget discussion and bore everyone to tears. Jennifer, go ahead.
Yes. Hi. Sorry. It took me a second to get myself off of mute and video. But hi, everyone. Jennifer Carroll Foy here. And I'm excited to say that I'm running for State Senate for the newly drawn 33rd District, representing Prince William and Fairfax counties. And so I'm really excited. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to ensure that we protect our progress and hold our line in the State Senate. We all know that the governor was not able to accomplish his mission of regressive policies and politics because the state Senate was the brick wall, but we have to add to those bricks. We have to add great candidates who will not equivocate, who will not back down from a fight and always do what's right for the people, and make sure that we get affordable housing, affordable healthcare, childcare, improve infrastructure, transportation, and revitalize the Route 1 corridor. So I'm excited to say that I'm ready to go to work and fulfill all the promises that I've made and I started, whether it was successfully passing the Equal Rights Amendment, expanding Medicaid to 600,000 Virginians, and fighting for the things that's really most important to us as working people. So I'm excited about this opportunity. I know 2023 feels so far away, but it's here, it's now. This is when we have to start building momentum, talking to the people, getting out there and making it happen. So no more bumper stickers, no more hashtags. We have to make sure we put the boots on the ground and get the job done. And I'm excited to work with all of you to make sure we make that happen. So again, Jennifer Carroll Foy running for State Senate for the newly drawn 33rd District for Fairfax and Prince William counties.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Jennifer, and saying hello. We're excited to see what happens in that race next year. We're going to have a lot of exciting races next year, and I think we'll see that. I think we'll see that in the budget that we're about to present. So thank you. All right. So getting back to I guess the good of the order here. The updated budget is increased both in income and expenses from when it was presented 2 months ago. The starting balance, I think, we're probably going to be above the starting balance that is listed here, but it's just an estimated kind of starting point that we have. The income has been increased to $412,700, and the expenses have been increased as well to $367,310. Those are, if you look at the summary, those are rounded numbers. That gives us a net income for the year of $45,000, saving up a little bit for next year. As we have to head in and have a kind of war chest ready to go for very important elections next year. That leaves us with an ending balance of $145,390 per the budget. And then I'll discuss the two kind of proposed sections here. We have income. The major difference from when it was presented before and to now is that we've kind of dramatically increased some of the fundraising numbers, because included within this budget is the idea that we hire, or that FCDC hires, a finance director. Approving it in the budget is it doesn't necessarily make that happen, but it just enables us in the construct of the budget to do that, to try it, to maybe hire someone on a trial basis and see kind of how it goes before we go out. But really the intent is to help build up fundraising in capacity so that we can really run a very, very good coordinated campaign to get folks in Fairfax County elected, in particular next year with all the school board stuff. So the numbers, direct mail fundraisers, direct contributions, sustainers have all kind of dramatically increased because of the idea of a fundraising director or a finance director who will work to build capacity on top of the additional, the current fundraising we have. So we're not trying to kind of squeeze all the money of what we have of all of our members and donors that have already given so generously to FCDC, but to find new folks who haven't given to FCDC but give to other Democratic candidates, et cetera, to build on top of that. So that's the idea, at least. The other thing that you don't really see in here, because it's kind of rolled up a little bit, is that we have a miscellaneous, well, it increased in the miscellaneous item because we have the idea of a storefront. We will very soon launch a storefront where people can buy FCDC branded items to help fundraise for FCDC as well. So just letting you know about those items. The operations income really has not dramatically changed since our last meeting, except for district assessments. District assessments have been increased in this budget to $3,000 per district. The FCDC district assessments have not been increased for a decade. And of course, our expenses have dramatically gone up in a decade, including for an executive director and for our rent, right? Which you'll see in the next on the next slide. So that is a summary of the operations income. And voter support or contact and election support income is kind of income expected from caucuses and standing committees for the most part. So that leaves, as I said earlier, income of $412,700. Expenses, there's a couple things here. So the joint campaign, it's kind of hard to see that we are increased spending money on this particular level of detail, but we are talking about spending a dramatically increased amount of money here, but hoping that the finance director can help us raise more money for a good joint campaign this year, in terms of absentee program, a voter guide, helping people understand where they've been redistricted to, et cetera. And then the Support Our Schools campaign is something new that we're talking about doing. It's weird because it's in the expenses category. It's because that's where our special kind of programs exist. But we are anticipating trying to raise more money so that we have additional money next year to carry over. That we have in this budget, we have $35,000 to carry over to help elect a Democratic school board next year, as we think is very important. Frank says that caucuses are cockeye in the chat, but the caucuses looks a little bit weird in here. That's why there's a star in here, because some of because obviously we didn't have caucuses in 2018, 2019. It's a new thing, but the standing committees that existed then are still kind of in these line items here in our budget. So and one other thing that we did that's a little bit different is we moved the sample ballots from the joint campaign to the precinct operations committee, basically under the standing committee. So that makes it look like we're spending a lot of money on standing committees, but a lot of it is precinct operations and sample ballots, which will include paper ballots. And then there is also the other kind of big support difference in here. In the other category is that we have an idea of a fellowship program. We have a whole bunch of, we've had over the years requests to pay interns, and our interns are, most of our interns and most all of our interns, I believe, are, let me say that again. All of our interns are high school students that are doing an internship for high school credit. So we cannot pay them per FCPS rules. So the idea is that we're creating another program where we can pay a couple folks a decent wage to help organize with FCDC for a fellowship for a couple months. So that's really the biggest increase that's in that other category there, from 5,000 last year to 30,000 this year, or this next year. Operations expenses, you can see that the office increase really is primarily just from rent, right? Goes up a set amount every year or year after year, according to our lease agreement. And that's the difference there. Staff obviously is dramatically different because we're talking about hiring an additional person. And that's kind of a big, it's a big expense, right? To hire another person with the idea that they could be up to a full-time person with benefits and such, but we'll have thoughts about that. Technology, we do have a little bit of an increase. We do want to replace a couple of the computers in the office, and get the executive director a new computer. I did see a question in the chat about bank and credit card charges. That's really not bank charges. I know that says that every now and then there's a bank charge, but primarily that's credit card charges. You get charged if people donate to us. We pay credit card charges, right? So you pay a certain percentage or in plus like a small fee for that. So the more money we make, the more that the bank charges are gonna, or the credit card charges are gonna go up. So it's a good thing to have the credit card charges go up, because that means we're having more money come in, and it's not really an expense that's not going to be covered in the budget. So it's really just kind of a notional idea of how much that might increase, but maybe hopefully it'll increase even more than that. And that's about it. There are some other things like a budget for the corresponding secretary to send flowers for in such for folks who have passed, or for I don't know, various other things that we have to do. So that's that is the budget. That's $367,000, 367,310.41 is the expenses, which if I go back, I guess that puts us at about $145,000 in the bank at the end of the year. So at this point, I will open up the floor for questions. But at this point, because this is something that gets that comes from steering and is recommended by steering, the motion is on the floor to approve this budget. And I see Diane Burns has her hand raised first, and I will recognize Diane.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I just had a question. So the budget was, I thought I saw 363 on the front, the first screen, and then it looked like our actual was 367. I mean, estimated expenses. And so that's higher than the budget. That was one thing I saw, but the other thing also was the fundraising. Is the fundraising something that we're pretty sure of? The dollar amounts were higher than in past years, the fundraising and large donors and so forth. I think it was on the first page.
Yeah, on this page. There's a couple sub thank you for your question. There's a couple sub kind of categories here, right? So the finance committee income is kind of which is going to include some of that finance director income, is as you can see, is dramatically increased. I mean, it's about 180. There were some increases just based off of some of the fundraising capacity that we have from dinners, from Road to Richmond, et cetera, that we've been successful with. But there are additional increases based on anticipation of being able to create new sustainers and some large contributions. So we feel pretty confident that we can do this based off of some discussions that we've had, but of course it remains to bear out to see what we can actually do. I always like to remind folks that a Senate race in any of our senators running for Senate basically run $1 million campaigns. So if Fairfax County, in the whole of Fairfax County can't do that, any of our but our state senators can. The kind of I don't know what that actually says, but I feel like I feel like there is capacity there. So we just have to see exactly how much of it is untapped, and then we'll know for sure. But it's a inspirational budget based off our ideas, and hopefully we can raise even more. Does that answer your question, Diane?
Well, I mean, it just looks so much higher than prior years that, what do we do if we don't get that money? Because it's a substantial amount. The 140 and the 50, it was like 240,000 really. And between fundraisers, large contributions, and sustainers.
Okay, thank you for your question. I mean, I think the other part of it, and I'm looking for I have a backup slide, but there's a couple things that we increase for. If we can't raise additional money, we're probably not going to have a fellowship program, right? So that's that's $25,000 that we're not going to spend, right? We're certainly not going to hire a staff member for a year for full time if we can't raise money from them, right? So we have a personnel committee, and the personnel committee will handle the hiring and the monitoring of the staff to see, and we'll come up with some ideas like like a 90-day trial, et cetera, to kind of build some proven fundraising capacity before we make it a more permanent thing. But the idea and the hope is that we can be successful with this. So we'll try it, and as always, if we have issues raising money or whatever, we will cut back on the spending. We won't spend everything that we kind of have in this budget. This is just approving us to spend those things if necessary. So thank you. Next is Sue Rosenberg. Go ahead. Or I guess it could be Marv too. Sue or Marv?
Yeah, hi, it's Sue. Two questions. One is the credit card fees. Do we use ActBlue for processing our credit card fees?
No, we don't. We use NGP.
Okay, and have we looked into other credit card processing ways of doing it to see if we can reduce the cost per credit card fee? That's one question. You don't have to answer that just now. The other question that I have is, what is the anticipated multiplier, I should say, for the finance person's salary versus the amount they're expected to raise?
Okay, let me answer the first or the second question first, because is that versus salary? Was that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so the I'm doing the math real quick, but it's just under 2.5 times the person's salary they're expected to raise.
Thank you.
But I think I will allow if we can, Nadia, to answer to the first question about whether or not we've and/or Andrew, whether or not we've explored other credit card processors. And if you're answering, Nadia, I can't hear you.
We really cannot, because the way our contract with NGP basically has us using them, but they have lowered their fees since we used to have them, and they are comparable with ActBlue, or even lower.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Reed Stockman.
Hi, I wanted to follow up on what Sue was talking about with the multiplier question. Traditionally, when one adopts a new finance position such as this, it takes a time to ramp up. And the other thing that we need to recognize is that person, I assume, will also be involved in what was in the traditional budget and raising some of that money. So I think it's a little ambitious for a new program to be suggesting that we raise all this additional money, particularly from new donors, when that's a very untried pool. And I'm curious if you can give some sort of overview as to why we think those numbers are attainable. The second part of that question would be that.
Okay, well, again, I think we're not completely sure, right? Until we make an attempt to do it. We have I think we would understand that there would be some ramp up time that would be necessary to do something like this. But we have a personnel committee which is kind of responsible for I mean, putting together the job description, kind of putting together kind of the parameters of how this would work. So it's not completely fleshed out. This is in terms of how a trial would work, like what the timeline in terms of being proven ability to kind of meet some of and increase some of that fundraising. So you know, some of that is to be determined by the personnel committee, but operating under the under the authorization that this is possible. It doesn't mean it's going to necessarily happen.
We have had finance directors in the past with varying success, and some of them actually were paid even in the past. I am concerned about this idea of what sounds like commission-based fundraising at some level. And so I would remind us that we really don't want to get in the business of commission-based fundraising or having the goals directly tied. Yes, great. That's wonderful that the personnel committee will deal with that. But we need to think very carefully about that. I think it's a good idea to have the finance director. I think it's a good idea to have this position. But we have to be very careful about what we project, particularly in the short term. I and others on this committee have lots of experience with the ups and downs of this type of thing with nonprofits. And so it's just something that we have some bench advice about, and I think we ought to be careful about how we approach that. And it would be nice to know that there would be opportunity to provide some feedback to the personnel committee somehow about some of the nitty-gritty parts of this, because I don't want to take up the whole meeting. That's not the purpose of this meeting, as you've said before.
Right. Well, so I mean, thank you very much for your comments, Reed, and I appreciate it. I do want to be cautious about it too. I just want to point out, and I think I can share on the screen, that the differences to the budget based off of this is an increased income total and an expense total. So if we don't do any of those things, if we approve this budget without any of these changes, the net income difference is 87,000 less, which is, if I go back and show you these other budgets, or actually I might even have to go to the summary, that puts us about where we were 4 years ago. It's a year where we were planning to have lost $45,000 because it's a year where we don't have income from membership dues, et cetera. So it will put us about in the same position, but the idea is we can try to see if we can build some of this capacity, and we would love your feedback. If you do have thoughts about that, please just send me an email directly, and I'd love to collect your ideas about who we should be targeting, how we should be doing this. But yeah, I agree. Probably don't need to figure that out in this meeting. The idea is we can approve this as an idea, explore it, and if we can make it work, then we would love to do it. But again, back to your point, nonprofits, usually the first person they hire is someone to raise money. So. But thank you. James McCarthy's next. And James, you're gonna have to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. Okay.
Sorry, did you hear me?
There you go. I could not hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. With hundreds of thousands of square feet of rental properties available in the area, have you considered negotiating with the landlord for a renewed lease at more favorable terms?
Yes, we have considered that. The last time we tried that, we were not very successful, but I think it's worth having another conversation about. So,
well, the pandemic has changed everything in terms of, if you drive across Route 50, you see nothing but for lease signs, for sale signs. I don't think landlords are in a quite the heavy bargaining position they once were.
Right. Well, we do have our lease, a 5-year lease. We have had the thoughts about trying to get more space for kind of the same price, because we concerns. Of course, the landlords are concerned. They want income too. But we will explore that again. We explored that kind of near the beginning of the pandemic, and did not go that far with it.
Well, if you're thinking of more space, this is a perfect opportunity to open that discussion on even, again, still favorable terms where you might save money over the short run.
Right. Thank you very much. It's very appreciated. Chris Ambrose is next.
Yeah, I was just going to mention is on I got in here, so hopefully this didn't come up, but on that position, the fundraising position, one of the things I would strongly urge is that you have as a condition that the person, or if you hire, go with the consultant or however you want to fill it.
What?
Are you still there? I think you muted yourself, Chris.
There we are. Okay.
We only heard a part of that. We did talk about that a little bit, and we did. There were some folks that had ideas about things we should be thinking about that. So we basically are trying to take some of that discussion offline. But yes, I think the idea is that there would be, some kind of trial or something that it's not something we're committing to.
I don't know how much you heard, but what I was saying is, as a condition of them, they should bring some donors to the table.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we did not hear that.
Yeah, because okay. What's going to happen is they'll hit our regular donors, and that's fine. But if all they're doing is hitting our regular donors over and over again to pay their own salary, that could be counterproductive. So to really add value, they should bring some donors to the table. I
mean, the position description actually specific, the draft position description that has not been approved and, is kind of waiting on whether or not we're doing that, is to increase the funding capacity in on top of what we already do and on top of the donors that we already have. So I think that it's clear that we want to do that versus just going after the same people that are already so generous. And thank you. Brian Estes next. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, I just wanted to throw, I guess, my expertise out there on this, because those of you who know me know I actually basically served as a finance director for Loudoun County Democratic Committee a few years back, actually doing, and we sort of crafted a commission structure that excluded existing donors and a bunch of other things. So I just wanted to, I already texted Jack about it, but I just wanted to say to the wider group, it can be done. And I would stress that, you know, there's definitely value in a professional fundraising staff. But anyway, I think, you know, as some people have pointed out in the chat, maybe this is definitely an offline conversation, but just wanted to throw my expertise in there because, like I said, I basically have done that job within the past couple of years. So happy to help craft that position and work on that with folks.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I think we might take you up on that. We really appreciate that. And I'm sure there are other folks that have great ideas about that as well. The motion or the budget is on the floor for approval. Was moved. It is under consideration because the steering committee recommended it. So last hand we have raised is George Becerra. Go ahead, George.
Yes, Brian, can you tell me the plan to work collaboration between this new position and the vice chair of finance that we just elected? Is there some bridge there? I understand that one is going to be a full-time and versus a volunteer organization that we are and the vice chair of finance. So where's the blending of the two?
Yeah. So the idea is that our existing finance organization is primarily focused on the thing, or in the vice chair of finance, the finance committee is primarily focused on the things that are already happening, and kind of maintaining them, right? So the growth is we're looking from this position. So there would be it's not completely fleshed out, but the idea, at least from a notional perspective, is that that this person will report to Jack, but also work in close coordination with myself and with the vice chair of finance. You know, because we need to make sure there is good coordination, that we're not going after the same people or doing things that are conflicting with each other. So of course we're going to have to work closely to do those things. Oh, another hand raised. Nordell, go ahead.
I was just actually raising my hand to call the question, if that's appropriate.
Well, with no other hands raised, it's kind of a moot point. We can just vote on it. I'm gonna lower all hands, and to say, unless there are any objections, the budget is approved. Okay, seeing no objections, the budget is approved. Thank you. I know that's not always the most interesting thing to do, but we do have, and there's some more detail in there in terms of standing committees and stuff. We have some really good things planned, I think, in terms of increasing our outreach over this year, and I'm excited to help us do that. So thank you for your consideration on time on that, and I am also really excited. The vice chairs, I didn't really get into it much detail, but the vice chair, the regional vice chairs, in coordination with the education committee, are going to be leading the Support Our Schools campaign, and I think we're gonna see some good things out of that this year too. So can't wait. So now we're on to vice chair committee and caucus reports, and I don't have any before the meeting requests for reports. So so if there are any requests for reports from a vice chair committee or caucus, now is your time to speak up. Michelle, did you want to say something or related to that, or Paul?
I just going to quickly echo what Brian has said about the regional vice chairs are going to be heavily involved in this campaign, and stay tuned because there will be a lot of things that people can do that don't necessarily involve canvassing or phone banking. If you're not been in favor of doing that kind of thing, we have a lot of other possibilities for things that can be done this time around. So stay tuned for that. That's all I have.
All right, thanks, Paul. And Saddam, I knew you were going to say something. I was going to call on you if you didn't. But go ahead. Saddam is our vice chair of finance. Your ears are burning.
You guys just heard me get fired, right? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I just want to make an announcement that we are having our first FCDC outdoor event, the road from Richmond, where we will have most of our delegations from Richmond coming down. It's going to be at the Hilton on April 9th at 10 a.m. It'll go until roughly 12:30 to 1. We do have speaker or our Senate Majority Leader Dick Sazla, along with Eileen Pillar-Corn, and most of our delegations will be present as well. And it is going to be at the Hilton. So I will drop that here on the chat. Please note this is our first outdoor event, so we would definitely love for you to just join us. There are early bird tickets right now that will end the first week of April. So please do register, and I will put the link on here.
Saddam, you keep on saying it's an in-person event, not outdoor, right? It's inside. You're muted.
It's an in-person indoor event at the Hilton.
Okay, wanted to clarify. We're having our first in-person fundraiser, and it's indoors, and it's also my birthday, so everyone has to come. It's a requirement. Well, I'd love to see you there at least. So thank you, Delegate Simon, fought a table. If any of the other delegates want to do that as well, that would be great. But yeah, we really appreciate your support, and I know some folks have been itching to go to an in-person fundraiser for a while, so I'm happy we can do that again. Are there any other committee reports before we move on to new business of what everyone wanted to see today, right? Okay, seeing no additional reports, I'm going to move on to new business, and here we are. We're at our first resolution, which comes from the FCDC State and Local Affairs Committee. So it is a motion on the floor, it is on the floor for consideration. I do just kind of want to point out, and maybe Nora can get into this in a second, but this resolution, or the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors today increased the new target for new affordable homes in Fairfax County to 10,000. So they have already done this. But Nora, based off of our resolution rules, you have 2 minutes, and you may speak in favor of the motion. And maybe I need to let you. You're on mute.
Perfect. Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes.
Incredible. Yeah. So I just wanted to talk through the resolution quickly, and then get into what's just happened today, which we're really excited about. But we wrote this resolution a few months ago and passed it by our last meeting unanimously, and that's how it's come to the floor today. I guess I sort of want to talk through the state of affordable housing in Fairfax County. We're currently operating with a shortage of affordable homes for folks. We're seeing that the housing supply has not kept pace with increases in population and jobs in the growing economy, as well as the cost of housing rising much faster than wages, which has resulted in a deficit of what was estimated in 2018 to be about 45,000 affordable homes that we are sort of lacking. And that's 2018, so that's not taking into account the last couple of years. And we also determined that the market alone will not produce the necessary housing options for Fairfax County's future. The need for affordable housing, I think it affects a lot of different groups of folks. Not only does it affect low and middle income workers that include many public sector and essential workers, it also affects seniors, workers earlier in their careers, persons with disabilities, and single income households, among many others. And so we even see that many adult children of Fairfax County residents are unable to remain or return to live in the county where they grew up, and other sort of things happening. We see also new problems with homelessness and folks leaving the county and being employed in Fairfax County but living elsewhere. We know that also that the Board of Supervisors in the past had adopted a goal of producing 5,000 new affordable homes by 2034 with no net loss in affordable homes. And today they've actually raised that to 10,000 as our resolution is asking for. And so we actually wanted to commend the Board of Supervisors and thank them for raising the goal and bringing themselves in line with what we and several other nonprofits were also asking for. So we're very grateful to that. We also know that it is not the full goal. And so the State and Local Affairs Committee views this resolution as one important step in supporting our Board of Supervisors, but sort of a first step in asking for more in the future. And so we would also like to urge anyone who is interested in joining and working on this issue with future resolutions to definitely get in touch, send me an email. We're going to try to keep our Affordable Housing Task Force going. And I'd also like to thank the members on there, especially Liza Dilberti and Jerry Poggi for working on this resolution, as well as Deborah Woolen as well. And we'd also like to urge anyone who is interested in testifying to accelerate the production and preservation of affordable housing in Fairfax County to testify before the Boards of Supervisors this budget season from April 12th to 14th. But yeah, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Dan Press?
Thanks, Brian. I'm going to move in light of the our resolutions procedures and which don't allow amendments generally, and the fact that this resolution by its terms has already been accomplished. I'm going to move to recommit this to the State and Local Affairs Committee. And it's not just, if I may, it's not just because it's been superseded. I mean, I think we could probably get a, sort of 100% consensual amendment just to say, yeah, sure, okay, we thank them instead of we call on them to do it. But, here's the problem. The resolution itself, the text of the resolution, talks about what the need is. The need in this county is far more than 10,000 houses, 10,000 affordable homes. I would bet that if we said 100,000, that wouldn't meet the real need. The text of the resolution doesn't even say it's that high, but I think it really 100,000 units might scratch the surface of getting close to meeting the need of affordable housing in this county. Not 10,000. 10,000 is a joke. I commend the Board of Supervisors for doubling their number from 5 to 10, but really, that's
your time, Dan.
So I move.
It is moved. You've already had. So it has already been moved. Is there a second to send this back to the State and Local Affairs Committee? I don't see a second. I don't think Jerry has his hand raised to make a second. Okay. I'd like to allow Jerry Poe to speak next.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Dan. I think the State and Local Affairs Committee has an ongoing task force on affordable housing, so your action is being considered, will be considered. And we know we have a number of junctions within which to ask for more. But asking for 100,000 homes instantaneously is, while it's aspiring to meet the need, it has practical ramifications that really are quite challenging to our elected Democratic boards of supervisors that could find them failing when actually they are making progress, albeit not enough and not fast enough. So I would just urge everybody on this call to think about coming to the State and Local Affairs Committee at our next April meeting and becoming part of the dialogue. I added a few resources into the chat line that looks at the state challenges to affordable housing. And Shamali just announced that Walter Alcorn has put his own challenge out there to get 1,000 in Hunter Mill District by 2027. And Dahlia Palchik is lifting up towards that. So I would just, in the spirit of trying to encourage momentum and positivity, the board ran on affordable housing in 2019, and they're likely going to run on it again in 2023. And I think we all want to work hard for making sure we get the most progressive people. There's only one member of the boards of supervisors who stepped away when the board's housing committee met last week to discuss these measures. I'll leave it up to you to figure out which one stepped away from the discussion. This is a great start, but we need to grow a bigger body of momentum to say yes in my backyard as opposed to no. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Roy Baldwin. Roy, you have to unmute yourself if you'd like to be heard. Okay, I'll move on to Alex Rodriguez then.
Hi, I got a little confused here because I noticed that there was not a second to the substitute motion. And if not, that means we're on the motion. And
That is correct.
we should continue discussing the motion, or I would like to call the question.
Well, Roy, do you have something to say? Or if there's nothing else for anyone to say, then we can just call the question. Okay, hearing no additional discussion, we can call the question and we will share the poll. Okay, I've just launched the poll. I guess I'll stop screen sharing as well. Hopefully that gives you an opportunity to vote on this. Okay, last call for votes. Most people have voted. If you don't have this, if you don't see the poll, you might have to exit full screen, or you might have to swipe on your screen. Only voting members of FCDC may vote, and we can and will validate that later. If you are voting and you're not eligible, we may reserve the right to refuse your entry to this meeting. So, okay, I'm going to end the poll now. I don't see any additional votes coming in, and the resolution carries 86% to 14%. And thank you. I mean, obviously, I think we all agree affordable housing is an important thing, and we need to keep pressing forward on it. So I think the state and local committee, affairs committee. Also, I just want to, in exposition, I want to thank them for trying to follow kind of this new process, where they told everyone they were talking about a resolution. They invited everyone to their meeting to talk about affordable housing, and they came up with this resolution in that group. So we're not sitting here and editing a resolution in this meeting. We're doing we had the consideration of the issue. We can say yes or no, and we can move on. So thank you for following that model, and I hope others will embrace it. The next topic of new business, and I would like to recognize Jeffrey Sherratt to make a motion.
All right, thank you, Brian. All right.
Just for clarification, I'd like you to start by making a motion to approve this resolution, and we can get a second, and then we can, and then I can give you 2 minutes of time to discuss.
2 minutes, you're killing me, Brian. All right.
Hey, it's our resolution rules.
Oh, I don't want to get on the wrong side of Dan Press on this one. All right. I make the motion to consider this resolution as it is written here.
Is there a second? Your hand raised a second? Yes? Okay. All right. Now the motion is made and considered on the floor. And now we can come back to you, Jeff, as the maker of the motion, to speak for up to 2 minutes in favor of the motion.
Great. Thank you very much, Brian. This resolution is in response to an issue that was brought up at the last FCDC meeting. For those who were there and remember, a member of FCDC proposed a censure resolution at the time for Senator Chap Peterson in regards to his comments about supporting the Republican bill that was underway, that ended up being SB 739 in the Senate, to basically prevent mask mandates in schools. At the time, it was tabled for the very reasonable reason of he hadn't actually officially done anything yet. Well, the following month of February, he did go through on his rhetoric, go through on his words, and side with the Republicans, made a important amendment, and basically allowed them to pass the bill that removed the ability of local school boards and local schools to manage COVID-19 mitigation via mask mandates, and with a bill that has no sunset clause, preventing future efforts in terms of mask mandates to deal with any future, whether it's COVID-19 or any other, at this point, any other pathogen that comes along, so on and so forth. So the resolution was tabled, and I am not speaking at all in regards to doing anything with that resolution. I am offering this as a compromise between people who may feel that something needs to be done in response to that action, and those who worry about the very real concern, to be blunt and to be quite pragmatic here, that a negative resolution aimed at the senator, considering the tightness of the Democratic margin in the Senate, could have potentially extremely bad effects for the blue wall and for our ability to prevent the Republicans from pushing through other even worse measures through the General Assembly. So as such, I decided to listen to my Democratic constituents and put forth this resolution, which instead focuses on thanking every other Democratic senator from Fairfax County for their voting against the Republican anti-mask mandate measure, and their words in favor and everything like that. So that's basically the long and the short of it, and I am hopefully wrapping up at exactly the 2-minute mark.
No. But you went a little over, but okay. But I only see one hand raised to speak on this motion, and I don't see anyone against. So I will allow Alice votes. I will recognize Alice Foltz to speak next for up to 2 minutes. And Alice, you'll need to. Oh, there you are. There you are.
I didn't intend to raise my hand, so I.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't planning to speak. Sorry.
Okay, you just like the idea. Okay, that's fine. All right. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing no additional discussion, we can now call the question, and I will launch the poll so that the membership can vote. Okay, last call for votes. Okay, the resolution carries 96% to 4% for those who have voted. So thank you for the consideration of that, and I'm pleased that we're getting through this business fairly quickly. So the next business is the decision on whether or not FCDC will endorse in the 2022 Herndon Town Council elections. I gotta find the slide again. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again to remind folks that where is my timer and how do I cancel it? Okay, to remind folks that I would like to, and I'm gonna lower hands, or if you can change your raised hand to either a green check mark or a red X. Green check mark is if you would like to speak in support of FCDC having endorsements in the town of Herndon. Red check mark if you would like to speak against, so that I can recognize folks in balanced order as is required by our rules. Let's see, hold on. I'm doing the right thing here. Okay. 64. All right. So I'd like to handle this under the resolution rules for fairness, and therefore we can make the resolution. Or I would like to recognize Cesar Del Aguila to make a motion that FCDC endorse in the Herndon Town Council elections. Oops, did I do this in the wrong order? Am I sharing the right thing? Okay. And Cesar, go ahead if you'd like to make the motion.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute.
And just to be clear, I'd like you to make the motion so we can have a second so we can start discussion.
Yep. I'd like to make the motion to have FCDC endorse in the Herndon Town Council election.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, Alex, would you like to second that motion?
Second.
Okay, now we can open discussion, and I will recognize the maker of the motion, Mr. Del Aguila.
May I share my screen?
Sure, but you will have 2 minutes.
I will put myself on a timer. Absolutely.
Okay, let me figure out how let me stop sharing my screen, and probably just need to make you a co-host or something. Let's see. I guess I can't do that. I'll disallow. This is dangerous, but here we go. You should be able to share your screen.
Yes, and thank you for that.
And I'll start your time when you begin speaking.
So thank you for your time. My name is Cesar, currently the Vice Mayor of Herndon, formerly the chair of this committee and a current Drainsville committee member. I want to talk to you about the Democratic Party platform and why I think it's important that we endorse in the Herndon Town Council election. It's important that we elect Democrats that represent our value, and we should be in every single nonpartisan office. Doesn't matter what it is. So from clerk of court to sheriff to council to school board, we have to elect Democrats that represent our values. Why is this important? Well, FCDC endorsement has had an impact on Herndon. You know, we originally in 2008 was controlled by Minutemen Tea Party members. They haven't really gone away. You can read some of this. We moved the elections from May to November. That was a good thing. I think it's important when voters come to the polls, they ask who the Democrats are, who we should vote for. We need to make it easier for them. I'm not talking about the people that are going to speak tonight. I'm talking to the people that speak another language or on their second or third shift of their job. Those are the people that we want to really help make easy to vote. For the first time in its history, Herndon became a majority minority representation council. It's not just enough. I've heard people say, well, Herndon's 60%, 65% Democrat, it's going to vote Democrat. Yes, it will, but the endorsement ensures that the electeds are committed to the Democratic Party platforms. Ending gun violence is a value. This passed 4-3. 3 Democrats, including the current mayor, voted against the gun safety ordinance. We need accountability. Earlier, we were talking about workforce housing or affordable housing. We in Herndon have been pushing this initiative. We've gotten several developers to come back and offer projects in partnership. We're converting Marriotts to workforce housing, and we're trying to approve a housing allowance for Herndon police to live in the town along with staff that they patrol.
That's your time. Please wrap up.
Please support the Herndon Town Council endorsement.
All right, thank you. Next, I will recognize, let me look down my list here. Sheila Olam.
Thank you. I'm so glad I was able to make it tonight. I was busy presiding over our public hearing this evening. My name is Sheila Olam, and I am the current mayor of the town of Herndon. I've lived in Herndon for the past 32 years, and it was a great place to raise my 2 sons. They attended Fairfax County schools. They're grown, they've launched, and they're doing excellent. Thank you, Fairfax County school system. I want to thank FCDC for all the time and support they've given me over the past 12 years. They have supported me in elections by helping me knock doors, etc., and endorsing me on 3 different occasions. At this time, I would like to ask FCDC respectfully to not endorse the Herndon Town Council in the election. Of course, if we are on the FCDC ballot, sample ballot, we're going to win. FCDC, Town of Herndon, we are blue. So that's not going to be an issue. It's whether or not people are going to get out and vet the candidates. Because what happens when you get elected to the Town of Herndon Town Council? You have a seat at the table. And to take advantage of that, you need to not only attend council meetings, you need to attend the regional meetings that we have the opportunity as council members to sit on so that we know how we fit in the big picture in Fairfax County. So let's do the right thing. Let's let the Town of Herndon residents pick who gets elected and not less than 400 people that might show up in a caucus, which happened 2 years ago. 2 of the candidates that got the most votes on that out of the 8 only had a little over 200 votes. Everyone else was less. I don't think that's a very good percentage for a group that has 12,000 voters. So,
time, please wrap up.
Thank you, Sheila Olam, Mayor of Herndon.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Next, I would like to recognize Alex Rodriguez. Actually, no, before that, I want to, I meant to do this before we even got into this discussion, and I just wanted to give, try to give kind of an unbiased explanation of what has even happened. And I think Cesar actually talked a little bit about it, but we had our first endorsement in the town of Herndon in 2016. In 2018, there was a bit of controversy that based off of the result, and that we had an old process where the district committee, so Drainsville, which only had 3 precincts in Herndon, made the endorsements. So at that point, we changed the process, the endorsement process for FCDC. And now, if FCDC, if our committee, if our committee decides to make an endorsement, we will have a caucus of voters in the town of Herndon, as we did in 2020. And 2020 was a little bit weird because we did it online and by mail because of the pandemic. I think we would do differently this year if we needed to. And we did, as a new process, we sent a postcard to every household that had registered voters in the town of Herndon to help them know that it happened. But so I think we would do a similar process if we chose to endorse this year. But I just wanted to give that baseline for the discussion. I hope that kind of adds context to some of the discussion that's already happened and that we'll continue to have. And now I'd like to recognize Alex Rodriguez for up to 2 minutes. And if you do less than 2 minutes, then more people can speak. You're still on mute, Alex. There you go.
Okay, I finally got unmuted. I'm speaking in favor of the motion because I realized, and Dan Press, thank you for the vetting discussion earlier. I got in touch with committee chairs about vetting because I noticed names of known Republicans trying to join our local committees this year. And thanks to people like Stephanie Sedgwick, who caught some people and sent them a note saying we weren't going to vote them in. The test of our good vetting practice was that they didn't appeal. They knew we had caught them at the door. And we have to be concerned about this. I sat at the polls last election and I was astounded by Democrats working against our ticket and known Democrats. And I just want us to get away from that. I think we have to be very careful as to who runs. Now, I know it's difficult in a predominantly Democratic town to choose who's going to run. But if you want the endorsement, like you get a union endorsement or anything else, you ask for it and then you apply and you follow the rules of that endorsement. In our case, it would be to go through a town council caucus, and let the citizens of the town show up. How many show up? At least, I hope we have it in person, will be better than some of the other elections we've had recently, where, for instance, on state committee and the 11th district committee, we voted totally online. We didn't allow people who didn't have electronic possibilities to vote. That's a form of voter suppression, but we lived with it. I believe that we have to stop people at the door, knowing that there are people who oppose our school committees and try to get our school committee candidate unseated by a recall. We have to be careful because the cultural wars are going on, and we have to look at the last elections. Even with our endorsements, the lower numbers of our committee who did get elected were very close to some of the others. And in the previous election, it had to go to court. So we need to be careful here and be careful by endorsing this resolution. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Sue Rosenberg.
Yeah,
Speak up to 2 minutes.
Okay.
Go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yes.
You gave a little bit of a history about what had happened with the endorsement process. The first time we were asked to endorse, this is at the Dranesville Committee level, we were asked to endorse in the Herndon election. It was not handled legally. Anyway, let me just say that it was not gone through any process that was right. It was solely the entire Dranesville committee that endorsed the candidates. The second time, people complained that, oh, the Dranesville committee, most of them are not in the town of Herndon. Why should they be determining who should be endorsed by the Democrats? And so they said, oh, we're only going to have Herndon people endorse, and we're going to do a caucus. And I think that proved to be a total disaster. And what has happened is that people know nothing about the caucus process. It was totally new to them. They don't know how to participate. There is a language issue. And instead of having the people in Herndon who are running for office actually going out and campaigning, they were very lazy and they just relied on the sample ballots. And that has really turned out to be even more of a disaster. So I think that we should, as the FCDC, stay out of the endorsement process. I also want to note that the town of Herndon, which has a town election, also refused to have FCDC and get involved in the election process. And I think that was a very wise decision on their part.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Next, I'd like to recognize Jennifer Deli.
Thank you so much. I'd like to speak in favor of the motion for a couple of reasons. I was the chair of the Dranesville district during the 2018 period when we did hold an endorsement at that time. We did make it more disciplined, as Sue indicated. We had a questionnaire. We had multiple candidates. We had more candidates than we had slots for. At the time, our process accurately weeded out a candidate that did not get an endorsement, who then did not get reelected, and subsequently has never rejoined FCDC, has never donated to candidates since then, has not participated in the Democratic Party since that point. So I think that our process did a good job vetting it. I do agree with limiting it to a caucus within Herndon. I think that is appropriate. And actually, at the time, I advocated for that and was not able to get that in 2018. Now, I want to tell you specifically why I support this. This is a town council. This is not just like ribbon cutting. This is not performative. They have taxing authority. They have their own police force. They do zoning, which includes development and affordable housing. We as a Democratic Party need to be able to signal in a jurisdiction, in a Commonwealth that does not register by party. Voters look to us when they walk up to the polls to get that blue sheet of paper to help them, because we know that these elections are low information and low budget, right? Knocking on doors, absolutely vital and absolutely doable, but they really look for that support from the Democratic Party. And the last thing that I'll say is that if we have multiple slates running, we will split the vote. We know that there are Republicans targeting school boards, town councils, not only locally, but nationally. And if we come out with like 12 or 14 candidates for 9 slots, including the mayor, we will split the vote and we will create opportunities for Republicans to take seats that we, I'm getting excited, that we currently hold. So I want to encourage you to please support the FCDC mission of educating voters. And one of those main mechanisms that we have is through our endorsement and through the sample ballot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think George Becerra has a question. And I still recognize George.
Thank you, Brian. This will be quick. So if I'm understanding this vote, and if the vote goes for not endorsing, does that mean the resources FCDC gives to precinct operations for these precincts, does that go away? And that means no fundraising or emails from these folks asking for donations. That whole shebang, does that, if we don't vote, if there's no endorsement, does that mean that all goes away? Because I just want to be consistent of when we endorse candidates and we don't endorse candidates, and how we procedurally and process and operations wise FCDC does in being consistent.
Okay. In my understanding, that choosing not to endorse would apply like it does or would do in the town of Vienna elections, where we just do not include endorsed candidates on our sample ballots. So it doesn't change what we do in the town of Herndon in terms of trying to get Democrats elected. It just changes really what appears on our sample ballots on election day. And next, I would like to recognize Eric Bohl. Let's see. Actually, you are actually, before we get to that, Stephanie Sedgwick, one of our regional vice chairs, wanted to address a precinct ops part of that as well.
Okay, this is Eric Bohl. May I, am I able to speak now?
Hold on just a second, Eric. Go ahead, Stephanie, just briefly.
Okay, I don't know if everybody knows this, but I was head of precinct ops for the past 2 years in Dranesville, and I'm still the area manager for precinct ops for our western precincts in Dranesville, which includes Herndon, as well as being a town resident of Herndon. And I just want to give people an idea of what will happen if we do not have endorsements on the sample ballot.
Stephanie, well, no, I'll recognize you for time to speak in favor of the motion. I thought it was
okay.
Okay, so let's go back to
distinguish between what other people wanted to say.
Okay, go ahead, Eric.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much for letting me take a few moments to speak. Yeah, I'm very much against FCDC endorsing people for Herndon Town Council. And part of it's because we have several council members now who were endorsed by FCDC and frankly don't really participate in town council meetings and do not have the interests of the town as their focus. And just a bit of background, my father was the mayor of a municipality for 26 years, okay? And this was his rule. You go out and you talk to everybody in the town, including those who don't agree with you. And I grew up in Montreal, Canada, in the suburb, which was 45% French Canadian. And what was interesting was the French Canadians voted for my father in a higher percentage of the English Canadians. My father was from England, and they did that because he spoke with them and understood issues. And it's really, really important that at the local level, at municipalities, that all candidates go out and talk to all the residents of the town. There are people out there asking me to run for town council right now, and they are not Democrats, but they know that I care about the financial issues, the planning issues of the town. Whereas we got a whole bunch of council members right now that were endorsed by FCDC who really don't care. And this is why I am opposed to FCDC in making endorsements, because it actually encourages laziness on the part of candidates. And if you're going to become a Democrat and do things, you'd better go out and make certain that you are truly interested and can convince people that you are going to serve the needs of the community. And then you go from there. But
that's your time, Eric.
Don't just simply run because somebody put your name on a sample ballot and figure you don't have to do any work and don't really care about what's going on.
That's your time.
And I'm adamant about it.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, looking through the list, Pradeep to call. Pradeep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Thank you. I support this and I urge everybody to vote yes for this. The reason it's important that the candidates continue to get endorsed by FCDC. Just to give you what happened in Herndon in the past 10 years, 11 years, you know, we're talking about affordable housing right now. Every developer that comes, we're talking about having different options of housing so people can afford it. We have the multicultural board right now. Just to give you a background, in 2007, an MOA was signed between ICE and Town of Herndon in its own language to enable HPD to identify and process the immigration violators. And that's the era we are coming from. And right now, we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And that's where we are progressing. And just to give you another, we had a gun ordinance, which was barely passed by 4-3 vote, even though the whole slate was FCDC endorsed. Now think about a situation if the FCDC does not endorse what happens with all these progressive agendas. But let me make it clear here, it's still the people of Herndon within the town jurisdiction who will be participating in the caucus, and FCDC endorses it. It is not the people outside Herndon in, participating in the caucus. If there is any confusion, I just wanted to clarify that. So that's why it's no brainer. I urge everybody to vote for it, yes for it. Being an endorsed candidate, serving in town of Herndon for 2 terms as a council member, I've seen that. And again, I haven't seen the council being the term called lazy here. And again, if somebody is not showing up or any reason, let the voters decide that. Voters would decide who will serve. But what we are asking here is FCDC to endorse the people who align with our values. So thank you. I ask everybody to vote for it. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to recognize Jerry Foltz next.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. This is tough, and it seems like FCDC can end up being a bit divided. There's certainly merit on both sides, and I appreciate the keen sentiments of some of the members in Herndon that want support from FCDC for endorsement, but I am against it. I feel like it's meddling in local town politics. I believe that the good Democrats in Herndon should do their own vetting, just like each district vets its own new members for FCDC, and we trust them to do that. And if Herndon needs more help, the Democrats in Herndon need more help, where many of us are available in whatever way we can, whatever we can do. And I would like to think that they could get some resources from members of FCDC to help. The Republican takeover is scary. I don't deny that, but I believe it comes down to where we need not to interfere with Herndon politics, because I'm in Centerville, and so Herndon is a different town. We learned from Herndon, certainly with Immigration Forum, that was sure, but we should not be interfering with what's happening in Herndon. Let Herndon call their play as Democrats, and good luck. And I glad to work with you in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Okay, we're running out of our time on 20 minutes. I would like to recognize Heidi. Where is she on this list? Heidi Meisenheimer.
Hi, everyone. I'm a 15-year resident of Herndon. I'm also one of the 3 precinct captains for the 3 Herndon precincts. And I am for the endorsement process. And I urge everyone to vote yes so we can keep Herndon blue. As you've heard, it's not been that long since we had Republicans running this town. The people speaking against the endorsement, most of them were for it when it benefited their candidates. They've eagerly accepted the endorsement and contributions from FCDC. So why do we need to endorse if people are changing their minds? Well, we need an endorsement so we can elect a more representative town council than we had pre-endorsement. We also need to tell the voters which candidates match our democratic values. We should be endorsing in every race we can, whether it's town council or dog catcher. This is how we ensure Democrats get elected up and down the ballot. And this is how we can grow our bench of talent. We have to fight Republican extremism at every level, and giving up town council seats based on what a handful of people want is not who we are as Democrats. As a precinct captain, I can tell you the handful of people speaking against this are not representative of what I see on election day. Voters come up to me and ask for the sample ballot. They want to know who to vote for town council and mayor. These people against the endorsements do not speak for the majority of Herndon residents and voters. These people don't work the precincts on election day, even though I beg them to help out. We need to endorse. It's what the voters want, and it's what they expect, and it's how we keep Herndon democratic.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. That is 10 minutes time speaking for the motion. And I'd like to recognize Charles Anderson next.
Thank you, Brian. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chuck Anderson, and I've been sitting on the town council in Vienna since 2020. And I thought I'd give you the perspective of an elected official, which I will admit has changed. As a candidate, I actually supported endorsements, but I didn't get it because at the time there wasn't official endorsements in Vienna elections. My attitude towards this has changed, however, as an elected official, and also because I've spent a fair amount of time trying to understand the polarization in our country and the incredible divisiveness. To put this in perspective, a good town council member has to deal with things like water and sewer and getting the garbage taken out. And the best way you can do that in a productive fashion is to work personally with whomever has the experience to deal with a bunch of incredibly complicated issues. Our nonpartisan board in Vienna, our council, has passed Liberty Amendments Month, which has been a great boon to recognizing diversity and the strength of the Constitution. We're moving to do more affordable housing. We have approved the purchase of body cams. This is all in the last year and a half. We've changed the name of Wade Hampton to Liberty Lane. We've done all of this without any sort of endorsements, and we've done it through bipartisan work. For that reason, my own opinion on this has changed since I became a council member, and I would support my Herndon brothers who are taking the job seriously and would like to work with whomever will take the job seriously.
Okay, thank you. Per the FCDC rules on resolutions, the debate is limited to 20 minutes, and I guess there were some gaps in there, but according to my timer, we have reached 20 minutes of so if there are not any questions, I see Jasmine, I cannot let you speak on the motion per the rules, Jazz, but if you have a question, I can allow you to ask a question, but I cannot allow anyone else to speak on the motion at this point. I can't hear you. You're on mute. I still can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
Okay. I wanted to speak.
Well, do you have a question or?
No,
okay, I can't recognize you.
Question.
I can't recognize you to speak. I'm sorry. we have rules unless we have rules for to limit discussion on such matter. So I apologize. Todd, do you have a question?
Yes, Brian. To confirm, you said that we would be sending postcards to everyone in Herndon. Everyone is who?
In the 2020 caucus process, FCDC sent a postcard to every registered, every household that had a registered voter, including Republican voters. So we invited all registered voters, if they were interested, or to tell them that we were having a Democratic caucus. It was a piece that was written in English and Spanish, and it was a process where people could either call a phone number or go to a website. At that time, which was both also in English and Spanish, and
How
they
would
would
that vet people out, though?
to participate in a caucus per the party plan. You have a party run caucus as this is. So to explain this, right? These are technically per the town charter. This is parties cannot be recognized on the ballot. So so we can't. There is no primary for this. So the FCDC runs its own firehouse primary or caucus, and per the party plan of Virginia, you may participate in such a caucus if you are a registered voter and if you're willing to sign a Democratic pledge. So that is
And the Democratic pledge is that they will vote for the Democrats that are on the slate. In other words, they won't run as independents or.
Right.
Okay, well, that sounds fair. Yeah, I just think it's really important to be as inclusive as possible. And as Cesar was saying, there's so many non-native speakers, minorities, is to reach.
Right, we can't speak on the motion anymore, but if there are just any questions of process or motions before we have the vote, this is the last opportunity to do it. Morgan Jameson, you're recognized.
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much. We've definitely discussed this a lot, but I do have some questions about any potential caucus that may happen as a result of any vote. Do they make early voting available? Is there vote by mail? Is this good for democracy? Can people vote online? Those are my questions about how much can we align this with a proper primary election to be as close as possible.
Okay, if we thanks for the question. If we do have a caucus, if we do select to have an endorsement in a caucus, I will appoint a task force to draft up rules, create a timeline, and of course we per the party plan we have the duty to aim for full participation. So we will allow for as many kind of opportunities to vote, either through absentee mechanisms or online, like we did in 2020. To allow as many folks as possible to vote. I see one hand raised, so I recognize Francis Canavan.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the operability of it, if you will, under the rules of the committee. Let's assume a contested race, if you will, multiple candidates seeking the endorsement of the caucus, the Herndon caucus, one candidate or two, however many get an endorsement, the others don't drop out. If I or someone in Herndon or someone of the committee away from Herndon publicly support, financially support, or otherwise take action to advance the candidacy of one of those people that did not get endorsed, have I just violated the rules of the party, of the committee, my pledge to support democratically endorsed candidates?
Thank you for the question. It's a great question because it's kind of been relevant to our previous issues in the town of Herndon. And the answer is yes. We have, as FCDC members, we have signed a pledge to support endorsed candidates. And in the past, the candidates themselves have signed a pledge to only support those endorsed for election. So violating those clauses would be violations of your duties as an FCDC member and would be cause for removal. So
thank you.
So yes, I don't see any other hands, so I think we're ready for the question. And thank you for the robust discussion. I apologize for the many people who did not get recognized, including current and former council members. But at this point, I will launch the poll, and we can have a vote. So not everyone has participated yet. I know folks, I'm going to give a little bit of opportunity because I know a lot of folks are still here because of this. We are not voting in chat. we are voting by Zoom poll. You may need to exit full screen. You may need to swipe if you're on a phone or a tablet to see the poll. And I will remind you that you have to be a voting member of FCDC to vote. Because this is well, depending on how this goes or whatever, we will kind of do a check to make sure that only those who voted are eligible. But I'm going to give another moment for folks to vote. Okay, last call for votes. I haven't seen any additional votes come in the last 15 seconds or so. So I'm going to end the poll and I will share the result. The motion to endorse in the town of Herndon elections fails, 53% to 47%. So it is very close. And I will ask Jack to as soon as possible do a double check of that and make sure that we don't need to revisit this discussion. But I thank you very much for the consideration discussion of this, and I don't think this will be the end of our discussion about endorsements, especially as we head into next year with the school board. We haven't had caucuses for school board elections before, so I'm sure there's going to be more conversations about the process. So thank you. The next order of business is a resolution, and I recognize Sandra Clausen.
Hi, Brian. I wanted to let everyone know that Brian asked me recently to draft a resolution to allow FCDC members to have a choice on this, have a voice on this matter. So the resolution before you, which is entitled the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, calls for a 2022 Virginia House of Delegates special election in compliance with the redistricting maps decreed final by the Virginia Supreme Court in order to protect the constitutional rights of all Virginians to equal representation. You have seen the resolution was sent out to you. We will need a 2/3 vote. And so I move to get the discussion going. I move this resolution.
Is there a second? Okay, I think I see a second from Saddam. Okay, is there any discussion?
The one comment I would make per the resolution is that, as you can see within it, I have cited that we have a lot of our sister colleagues that are in favor of it at this point. We have the Virginia State Conference of the NAACP, the Virginia League of Women Voters, and the ACLU of Virginia.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? I think people are tired. Stephen Spitz is raised his hand. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yes, I strongly support this resolution. If we do not have elections under the new maps, we will be in the old districts and have no representation in the new districts, many of which are essentially left without representation. And let me explain that. Places like Loudoun County and Prince William County, which have grown enormously since the 2010 census, we would be locking in. There's a district, for example, in Loudoun County that now has 140,000 people, and another district, this is a House of Delegate district in Southwest Virginia, that only has about half of that. So what you're doing essentially is disenfranchising mostly people of color who have moved into places like Loudoun and Prince William in particular. So this is to me, it's a no-brainer. Reynolds versus Sims says there should be equal representation in every state legislative district. Right now, we don't have that. Right now, we don't even know who our representative is. In my House of Delegates district,
Stephen, that's your time.
Okay, well, there are 2 people we should know. We should have representation in the new districts now.
Okay, thank you. Diana Smith.
I don't have a comment as much as a question. Sandra mentioned 66% and I needed for the vote, and I didn't quite get the context of what she was saying.
Oh,
Go ahead, Sandra. You can answer that question.
Bylaws, if we do not give a 7-day notice about a resolution to our members, which then would require a simple majority, when a resolution is introduced on the floor, basically, or without less than 7 days, we always require a 2/3 vote to ratify.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no additional hands or discussion, the question is called, and I'm going to launch the poll for whether or not we adopt resolution supporting having special elections for the House of Delegates this year. Okay, last call for votes. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. So last choice. Okay. The motion carries 86% for and 14% against. And thank you for the consideration of that. Is there any additional new business? Uh-oh. Okay. Maybe we can see your screen. See my screen. Okay. I'm not seeing any hands raised for additional business, so we can move on the agenda to announcements. Please raise your hand if you have an announcement. And quick on the trigger, as always, is Tora Arsala. Go ahead, Tora.
Hey, everyone. Great to see everyone. I'm starting a Fairfax Democrats Disabilities Caucus. I've posted the form in the chat. If anyone's interested, please fill out the form. And also, I have filed to run for chair of the Democratic Party of Virginia's Disabilities Caucus, and I hope to have your support in the upcoming election. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tora. Next, Amber Beekler, chair of the LGBTQA+ Caucus.
Hi, everybody. Just real quick, school board meeting this week at 6:30. There is a rally. If you're not aware of where that's at, it's at Jackson Middle School. Rally for librarians in public education at Fairfax School Board meeting. It's organized by Fairfax Pride, FCPS Pride, FEA, for public education, the Associated School Librarians of Fairfax County. Anyone who's been paying attention, the school board has been a hotbed for the right wing. It's really important that we come out and support our public education, our school board, and especially our librarians this week. So that's this Thursday. The rally is once again at 6:30, and then the school board meeting starts at 7 o'clock. Hope to see folks out there this Thursday.
All right, thanks, Amber. Next hand raised is Kate Sanchez.
Hi, friends. My name is Kate Sanchez. I am a patient advocacy organizer for thank you, for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia, as well as Planned Parenthood National. I am mainly focused on abortion destigmatizing. So if anyone in this group is wanting to learn more about abortion stigma, what that looks like, and kind of where Roe versus Wade is headed this summer, I am your person to call. I will put all of my information in the chat, and I'll probably be attending more meetings. So thank you guys.
All right. Thanks, Kate. And last but not least, Han, is Catherine White.
Oh, hello, everybody. Good evening. Hey, I wanted to I'm going to put it in the chat, but there's a great meeting this Saturday to celebrate Women's History Month. Senator Warner will be hosting down in Prince William County with Congresswoman Wexton and Spanberger, and a heck of a lot of great women elected Prince William County, from Brianna Soul to Elizabeth Guzman. So I'll put it in the chat. It's free. They're going to have barbecue. It's at 2 p.m. at Winners Church. I would love to see everybody out there, because this is the first phase of organizing that we'd like to see, and the new redistricting down there to show some, to crush it, as I say, in November. So I hope you can come. It's in the chat, and thank you.
I have this weird thing at this point in the day where my hand or where my Zoom keeps crashing. It can't handle all the screens and all the things I'm doing. But thanks, Catherine. I'm not seeing any other additional hands. So, and I think I'm sharing my screen here. So there being no additional business before the committee, we are adjourned. Our next county committee meeting is May 24th. Their countywide committee meeting is May 24th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. and will be a hybrid meeting, so people can attend in person or virtual. Check out the FCDC calendar, fairfaxdems.org/calendar, for all kinds of events, including your next district committee meeting, caucus and standing committee meetings. I think we have a couple tomorrow, or just other Democratic events. Alex, I see your hands raised, but we're adjourned. You have something?
It was to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay. Well, without objection, so ordered. Thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you for the discussion that we had today. I know not everyone's gonna be happy with that, but with the result as close as it was, but I do really appreciate that we all really care, and we are going to work. We're going to work our butts off to get Democrats elected. Period. In Fairfax County, and I hope you'll join us. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a good night.